What's going on, good people? Thank you for tuning in to the Angels Online, Voice of the Unheard, brought to you by me, Angel. You can check it out each and every Wednesday. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever social media platform you utilize. If you would like to donate, you can go to anchor.fm/the Angels Online. If you would like to become a monthly sponsor, you can go to patreon.com/the Angels Online and become a monthly sponsor. But remember, whatever you choose to do, understand and know that you are appreciated. Now, let's get it. Good people, good people. You got to get a people what they want. Woo-wee. Good people, good people. You got to get a people what they want. Woo-wee. Good people. All right, Justin, can you hear me? I'm going to do a sound check while I'm on sound. Okay, can you hear me?
He gave you a thumbs up.
All right. Betty, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
That's what I like to hear. You know what to say, Betty. You know what to say. I got Betty in the building, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 9. I also have a co-host today, Cynthia. Cynthia, tell them a little something about you.
Yes, I am so I'm so excited to be a part of the Angel Online's Voice of the Unheard. My name is Cynthia. I am the CEO and founder of God's Divine Purpose for Your Life Ministry. I'm also a coach, a mentor. I'm the author of 7 books. And I just want to thank Angel for allowing me to be the co-host on the Angels Online Voice of the Unheard.
Boom. We got Cynthia. I thank you for being here also and being a part of the Angels Online Voice of the Unheard. We got Betty Jane in the building. Betty, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Betty, let me ask you one more time. Betty, how you doing?
I am doing good.
Come on, you know what to say. Betty's an educator, detective, former chief of police, and investigator, now author of her new book about poverty in the rural criminal justice system, and her sister sentenced to a life, 25 years plus life. And let me just tell you, Betty Jane got a story coming from Missouri, Betty. Am I right?
Yes.
And we here to shine light on that because what we do as the Angels Online, we shine light on voices unheard, people who are not heard, who need to be heard, and stories. We respect all voices, all stories, and we shine light on the good people, good people. Betty, you're an investigator right now, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're calling in from where?
Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, Washington. I'm going to ask you, what's the weather like there?
It is really nice, but we're getting ready to have some more rain because we don't see the sun sometimes for 4 months at a time out here.
Oh, Lord, 4 months at a time. Wow. You know what? At least in St. Louis, we get sun during the wintertime.
Yeah, I miss the seasons. I miss them. I miss the 4 seasons. We only have spring and fall. That's how we have all year long.
Spring and fall. Oh, my goodness. Oh, we gonna pray about that. So,
Yeah.
Betty, you ready to get started? You ready to get started, Betty? Tell me.
I am. I'm ready.
I know I talked to you briefly the other day, but now you about to get the people what they want. We're going to hear about Betty because we focus on diversity. We focus on everybody, no matter what your issues and your problems are, no matter where you from. Life hits us in all different angles. It hits everybody, and it's called life. I don't give a damn what color you are. I don't care about anything else. Excuse my language because you know I don't be cussing on the Angels Online, but guess what? It's called life. All right. Betty, give me a brief introduction of who you are, what you do.
Well, my name is Betty Frizzell. I'm an investigator in the state of Washington, but I am originally from southeast Missouri, down on the Arkansas border in a little town called Poplar Bluff. I did most of my law enforcement career right outside of St. Charles, and I was chief of police for the city of Winfield, Missouri. But nothing prepared me for what I had to deal with when my sister was arrested for murder in 2013.
Okay. So later we definitely gonna touch on that. We're definitely gonna touch on that. So Poplar Bluff. Tell us what that town is again.
Poplar Bluff. It's a very small town right on the Arkansas border.
Okay.
And it's if you go down I-55 to 67, you'll hit it. Just keep going south. But it's about 150 miles from St. Louis.
Got you. Okay. So do me a favor. Can you tell us about your childhood?
Well, I was raised by a mom. I was the youngest of eight, and my next oldest sister is 6 years from me. But my oldest sister, there's 21 years difference between me. I'm the youngest, and my older sister is the oldest, is 21 years older than me. And I was raised in a very poverty-stricken home. My mom raised us off of Social Security. And living out in the country, we killed mostly everything we ate or grew, and just being poor and white out in the country and not having the right last name. There's a lot of discrimination that goes along with that.
Got you. That leads to my next question. Did you face any challenges, as a child growing up, being?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, being a young girl with, a mother that had a drinking problem and was known around the small community because, small towns people talk. I didn't get invited to birthday parties because of my mom, and I didn't realize the term white trash until I was in second grade. And I didn't know what that meant. I knew it was something bad because they were talking about it like it was bad, but they put that label on me like it was common knowledge, and I should have already known what I was. But I didn't know what I was. So that was pretty hard growing up. I just had to fight those. But we moved into a bigger city later on. We moved out of the country and into the actual town, and it was a little bit better. But still, when you don't have the right name or the right kind of shoes, or you don't have money to buy things, there's a lot that comes along with that.
Understood. So I'm going to ask you what town you guys moved to, but before that, I want to ask you who raised you. There were 8 of you, and you said your mom. Who raised you?
Just my mom. We weren't allowed to ask about our fathers because from what we know, there's 5 different fathers for the 8 kids. And my mom said, "Hey, I'm your mom and your dad. You don't need to worry about your dad." I didn't know who my dad was until I was 36, and Ancestry.com told me.
Did it come out to be true?
Yeah, it was my dad. I mean, the DNA, I didn't know who it was. My mom would never let us talk about it. It was, I'm your mom, I'm your dad. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. I take care of this. Don't worry about who your dad is. So when I found out who my real biological, he had already passed by that time, but I'd met him maybe twice, but I didn't know he was my biological father. It was just some person that my mom knew.
Got you. And how was your relationship with your siblings, even though you guys had 5 different dads, 8 of you? How was your relationship with them?
It was there's such a big age difference. I was more like their child than being a sister because they're, 21 years. I have a niece that's 3 days younger than me. Oh. So it was more like there was just that age difference was a real problem, except for the one that's closest to me in age, which is my sister Vicky, which is the one I wrote the book about.
Got you. Okay. So that was the one closest in age to you. So that was the one you more like took to or hung out with, basically.
Yeah, she had her problems. She had oppositional defiance disorder, but they didn't know what that was back in the 70s and 80s. They just thought she was a bad kid. They didn't know about mental health conditions. Teachers weren't privy to it, and no one really knew how to deal with somebody like that. They just thought she was just a bad kid. So she was constantly in trouble at school. She was constantly getting. Back then, we did corporal punishment, so she always got a spanking and then when I would come along and have teachers after they had her, they would think maybe I was like her.
Right.
And it was a big challenge. And then she could never she had this oppositional defiance, which she didn't like authority, so she would shut down. And it was embarrassing being around her because sometimes when we were younger, because I couldn't understand why she couldn't control it. I didn't understand the mental health part of it.
All the science with mental health wasn't available back then, and all the resources, right?
Right.
Okay. So, do you have any aunts and uncles? Was it just your mom? Because you didn't know your dad. What about your family as a whole?
I knew my aunts and uncles, but my grandmother was just wasn't like a loving grandmother. She was really she was a real country woman. She was very violent herself, and so we didn't have a strong family bond. We'd have the family get-togethers, the barbecues and stuff like that, but there wasn't a real big family bond. I mean, I didn't have like an favorite aunt I could call or a cousin I could call. It was more like mom wanted everything that stays in the house stays in the house. You don't talk about what goes on in the house.
That sounds like some people are still stuck in those ways and do that to this day.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask this when you because we talked about your family. Who was your biggest influencer as a child to escape the things that you're talking about? An abusive grandmother, mom being slightly controlling. I'm mom, I'm dad. You being the youngest child, your closest being a sister who had mental health issues. As I recap, edit if I'm wrong or whatnot. So who was your most influential individual as a child?
Well, my mom did a really good thing. She named me after the first female mayor of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, which was Betty Absher, and she just passed here a few months ago. But Betty was like a big influence on me because I had her name, so I had a lot to live up to because I was always told, "Oh, you got Miss Absher's name." And she was a godly woman, and she was in the church, and I went to church with her. Mom would put me on the church bus all the time. So I was always in church going to, and that, and when I got a little bit older, I had teachers. And this is one thing I think we've gotten away from. I had teachers that like influenced me to, you don't have to be where you come from. This is who they tell you are, but you aren't.
Yeah.
When I was told I was white trash, she said, that's just some label they put on you. Take it off, throw it on the ground, get you some Goo Gone and wipe it off. Just keep going because you don't have to be where you come from.
That's what I'm talking about.
And she's still in my life. My teacher, my fourth grade teacher, is still in my life. She was just here in Seattle. She drove from Missouri and we spent some time together. I see her about every other year.
That's amazing right there. That's amazing. And that's true. And you're right. Educators, they got to realize that they have an impact on these kids out here. And that's what I want them to start seeing. It's not just here to teach about what we talked about the other day, photosynthesis.
Yeah, right.
We're not here to just learn about photosynthesis. These kids got stuff going on. Touch on those topics and talk to them. See what's going on before you talk about photosynthesis. Because if they get a relationship with you, they might be more reluctant to learn about photosynthesis because they know they got your ear at the same time and they got that felt safety going on.
Well, that pay it forward attitude that my teacher gave me in fourth grade, that she still was in my life all the way till I got out of high school. She made sure I got that paper when I walked across the stage. She was there, but I took what she taught me and I took it to the classroom because I taught in North St. Louis for years. I taught criminal justice and policing in North St. Louis. And, I knew I was those kids. About the only nicest thing I would ever hear, I wouldn't hear it from my mom. I could come to school and I had that teacher that was there, that teacher that would listen to me when no one else would, that teacher that taught me how to do things. So I had these people in my life, these social anchors that kept me from going that way. Because in junior high, you're going to go one way or the other. That's just a fact in criminology. And when I went to junior high, my fourth grade teacher, who was also my sixth grade teacher, she was in my business. She was like, "Okay, what are you doing? Are you studying? Are you doing this?" But we've lost that somewhere because everybody's afraid of getting sued or they're afraid of doing the wrong thing and I think that's an injustice to a lot of young kids. When I was that busybody teacher, like, hey, you got a problem, come sit in Miss Taylor's classroom, or and I still have those kids in my life today. I just went to a wedding of one last year.
That's awesome. We gonna talk about that. Oh, we got to talk about that. Tell me before we go forward. Tell me about your family's legacy that led to what you have going on now, like after you got out of high school and everything else. Tell me about that, because I know we talked about it individually before we went live. Tell me about that. So your influences, we got your influences. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I think it was, having these people that really looked out for me and having this responsibility of having this name of this really godly woman that was really a good Christian and everything everybody looked up to, And but then I had to come home to my great grandmother was a murderer, my grandmother was a murderer, my mom was a murderer, my uncles were murderers. I have two sisters that have been charged with murder, and just being around that violent the mental health conditions that were untreated, the drinking, because a lot of people, they use chemical substances to treat their mental health issues, and that's what was going on in my house. But I knew what was right because I would go to church and I'd hear what was right. And I had these people from school, these people from the school that would help me. And I knew what I was being told, but what I was seeing at home. And my mom had that do as I say, not as I do attitude. Mm-hmm. So if I tried to do what I wanted to do, she would be more like, not to act like that. But she would do that. And then I found that contradictory thing. I think I was smart enough, or maybe just lucky enough, to figure out that I'm not going to do like she does. I don't want to be sad and sit in my room and cry and use alcohol to medicate stuff. Something clicked in me as a young child, and I don't know what it was, but I think that happens a lot. I would see people that I'd arrest, and there'd be one out of these large families, there'd be one that really made it and got out. And I always hoped to be that person. And I would always look at those people like, you did it, you can do it. You can do anything. But unfortunately, other people buy into that negative talk that they're told every day.
Mm-hmm. Facts. Man. So how did you find support as you forged your own path in life?
I think it was just having that spiritual component of, being put on that church bus every week, put on the church bus, having these people always in my ear to say, hey, this is not right. Because, we were so poor. I didn't realize that towels had matching sets. We always had towels that were all different colors. I didn't know the sheets came in sets. I didn't know any of that, but being exposed to these other people through church and through school and through doing activities, because I always wanted to learn. I always wanted to learn and get out and not be that. Because living in a trailer in the middle of the country scared me to death. That's what I was afraid that was going to be, because that's what I was basically told that was going to be my lot in life. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Betty, this is Cynthia. And
yeah,
I have just a couple of questions, because I can relate to your story as a child growing up. I grew up in a dysfunctional family. And for me as a child growing up, it was very unhealthy. It was toxic. It took me down the wrong path. I started doing things I should not have done. I started going places I knew that I should not go. I started getting into toxic relationships, and it all drove from growing up in a dysfunctional family. And so what I wanted to ask you, when did you start to see a change in your life that guided you onto the right path? I know you said you had, it was your the spiritual guidance. Did your brothers and all, did they ever took that spiritual path?
Oh, it was more of my sister. I have an older sister that lives in Georgia, and she married into a really nice family. And her mother-in-law, who I talk about in the book, was kind and nice, not like the fake sometimes you see at church where they're like, oh, they're pitying you, in the South they always say, bless your heart, and you know what they're really saying. They're really having sympathy for you. But it was this mother-in-law of my sister's mother-in-law, Edna, that really said, you know what, God didn't make you flawed. You're in a flawed situation, but God didn't make you like that. Mm-hmm. So right. You have a choice. Because, I'd cry about my mom. And then she came in my life, I think I was in third grade. She came in my life, she said, you go to church all the time. You need to read that. You need to learn that, because God didn't make you flawed. And I thought that was amazing, because she was always so full of joy, because she had that real joy of living a good life and her house was always clean. She always had food. She had matching towels and sheets. And I think it was just her influence that I saw the life I wanted, and being exposed to that type of person, that was the best thing that I could have seen. And if more people that have that good life could get exposed to more kids that are suffering in poverty like I was, and show them that it's obtainable. because my mom, when I told my mom I wanted to be a police officer, she was like, "Why you want to do that? That's for other people." Well, can't I be another person? Why can't I be one of those other people? And she was so caught into that trap of poverty and trap of that society told her that she was just this whatever she thought she was. I didn't buy into that, and I think it was being exposed to these other people besides being out of the house. And the best thing my mom ever did was like make me go to other people, because when I got exposed to these other people and other cultures and other ways of life, it was eye-opening.
There we go.
That's
Ooh,
awesome.
I'm
That
glad.
is so awesome. And I also come from a background. I'm also saved. I got saved at the age of 23 years old. So my background has always been spiritually as well. During my trials and tribulations. And so the spiritual enlightenment that was given to you, were you able to shed that to your siblings? Shed that light to your siblings?
I did after, and Vicky, my sister that's in prison, she always had, we always were very, God was always part of our life. Even though my mom didn't live by any of the scripture or live by any of the commandments, it was always, that God is, you always give it to God. God will take us through because, hey, we don't have any food, or hey, the water's not working, but God is going to get us through. You got to pray harder. And, my sister and I really didn't connect until she went to prison, and she got saved, and she was like, I've done all this stuff, God. I said, God's going to forgive you whatever happens to you. God, that's why, he sent his son down for us, and my sister's actually studying theology in prison right now. And, I'm closer to my sister now than I ever was when she was outside of prison.
That's awesome.
I'm going to go back to something that you said that I really want the people to remember what you said. You said your mom exposing you, making you go to other people's houses and, exposing you to other people is what really drove you, and it helped you actually understand other ways of life. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's called culture, man, and I think that's a great thing. That brings a whole nother perspective.
Yes.
To your life and to others' life when you actually can sit down and see what others, it's appreciation. No matter what they're going through, it's an appreciation for life in itself to be able to recognize and see what somebody else might be going through, whether good or bad, whether it motivates you. Either way, it should be motivating. You know what I'm saying? If it's bad, you don't want to be that way, and you want to motivate yourself to do better. You know what? Either I'm going to help these people, or I'm going to find a way to where I don't have to deal with this. Or if it's great, you're going to be like, you know what? I need to live up to some standard. I know I need to get out here and do what I need to do so I can be. I want to be that good. I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to get on that plane anytime I want to, and this and that. So yeah, I commend you for that. So I'm going to say that you found what helped you heal is looking up to God and getting in your spiritual way.
Yes. And, being exposed to other cultures, because that's one thing my mom, she was a violent person. She really had a real hatred towards men. Men were never kind to her. But like minorities, or even we had a transgender person in the small town I lived in, and she was always getting beat up. And one time I remember me and my mom stopped while we found these two guys were beating her up, and mom jumped out with a baseball bat and, said, "Hey, I've got a solution to all your problems," And I remember mom taking her home, giving her some of her clothes, cleaning her up, giving her food, letting her sleep at our house where other people were shunning this person. And here was my mom, not a godly person. She was a spiritual person, but she didn't live by the scripture. And she said, and the lady had told my mom, why? My mom said, "Why were they beating you up?" And said, "Because they don't like my life." They said, I'm a sinner, and that I needed to be they needed to beat me to straighten me up or something like that. And mom said, "I don't know whose God they're listening to, but my God says you're perfect." And that was so impactful for a 10-year-old to hear. Mm-hmm. And, my mom's best friend was a African-American woman in the South. that's the most marginalized voice you can get as an African American woman in the South. And I learned more from her than I ever learned in a classroom.
Come on, you know what to say.
And so I took all these experiences, and I was like, that's why when I became a police officer, my mom was like, if you're going to do this, I can't change your mind, but if you're going to do this, you're going to do this the right way. And you said everybody has a reason and a way that they live in life. As long as they're not hurting other people and other things, they might look different, they might do things different, but if you're going to do this, you're going to have that. You're going to have to understand that people live their life the way they do. And I got it. I came from dirt poor. I got it. I'm very fortunate now. I'm very blessed with my husband I have now to have a life that I never thought I'd have.
Amen. Come on. So,
but
I love it, Betty. I love it. You talking
Yes.
to me, Betty. I don't know which one of these I want to hit. I don't know what. I don't know if I want to the gavel. I don't know what I want to do. Talk to him,
Yes. Love it.
Betty. Oh, Betty. So, what's the best piece of advice for anyone wanting to break a family cycle? What's something? I know you had your own way, and everybody can make their own way. But what's anything that you would like to just tell somebody?
Well, if they're not a spiritual person, because that's what I did. I gave it to God and said, God, take me wherever
Okay.
you need me to go. But if they're not, just listen to yourself. You're not the sum of what you come from. You're not. I got told by a 10th grade teacher that I was going to be a welfare mom having 5 kids by 3 different dads. And years later I saw her, and when I was a police officer, I pulled her over for speeding, and I said, do you remember me? And she said, no. I said, but I remember you, and I remember your words. I just want you to know I got one son by one man, and that's it. But anyway, I listen to yourself. You know what's right or wrong, and you know when you're not living that right life. You know it, and even if you're not a spiritual person, you know what's right and you know what's wrong. If you don't know what's right and you haven't been taught that way, learn it. Expose yourself to other things. Get out of that bubble.
Get
Because
out.
that bubble's sometimes toxic.
Yeah, sometimes, it's always toxic. When you don't get out of it, you lose a whole lot. You know what I mean? You lose opportunities, you lose relationships, friendships, family, potential kids. You lose a whole lot when you stuck in that bubble. And it's unfortunate that some people are really complacent within that
Right.
bubble.
Very complacent. They stuck. They don't
Some people are
wanna move.
very scared of change, and change is a good thing.
Resistant to
I've
change.
embraced it.
They're resistant to change. And like you said, and what I always say, you do not have to be a negative product of your circumstances. You ain't gotta. So how did you find, you know what, let's talk about your law enforcement. When did that start? Give me that.
I'd lived in Seattle. I'd come out here for a little while, and then I decided to move back home. And I took a test for the military, and they said, "Oh, well, you should be an MP." I was like, "Me be a police officer? Do you know where I come from? Do you know these people?" And they're like, "No." And so I took the test, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you need to. And so I started looking into it, and I thought, you know what? I don't have to be like the police officers I saw growing up. They were usually male. I didn't see any females growing up, but I was exposed to the lady I was named after. She was deputized for a short period. She didn't have all the powers of arrest and everything, but and then my godmother, she always carried a gun. So I was like, all right, I had a gun before I had a Barbie doll. I'll tell you that right now. I grew up with a gun way before I had a toy, but I did it with respect. We always were taught that was a gun for a Southern country woman is like having a washing machine. It's a necessary tool to survive. So, you had to eat, so you had to learn how to shoot.
Yep.
And so, I took the test. I went to police academy, and I was like, man, I think I'm pretty good at this. And then I understood. I come from a different place than most police officers, because most police officers don't have murderers for mothers, or they don't have like this lineage of homicide, well, maybe they do, but they just don't talk about it. Like we were, we were very vocal about what this stuff was. And then I had that spiritual component too, that, to show compassion and show respect to people, and that's lost, I think, a lot because the power, you want to control the scene because you don't want the scene to go crazy, but I think that I specialize in sex crimes, but that's what was my main focus for a long time, because the most vulnerable people are children and elderly, and they're your sex crimes victims a lot of the time.
So what adversity did you have to overcome as a woman in law enforcement? Come on.
Oh
now,
my gosh. Like I would, when I started out in a small sheriff's department in Southeast Missouri, not in Poplar Bluff, but the next county over. And I solved a series of burglaries because my mom had been doing these hustles for a long time. I knew this, I knew what was going on. That's one of the things when you're raised by a criminal, you get that criminal instinct that you know what's up. And so I solved a bunch of crimes, and they still called me the little girl deputy.
What?
The little girl deputy, I was always called little, or when I was chief of police, they'd call and say, hey, I want to talk to the chief, not the secretary. And I say, hey, I am the chief. I'm not your secretary.
Wow.
Because you got to think, I was only one of 3 female chiefs of police at the time in Missouri. There might be more now, but in Missouri at that time in the early 2000s, it was just me and a couple other ladies from smaller departments. And so there was, it was always, you had to prove yourself more, because it still is a very male-dominated field. And that's what happens a lot of times. And then, but you gotta have compassion, and that's one thing I always found. A lot of people didn't get into it. They were just like, "Oh, I'm gonna get these dirt bags or whatever." Those are humans. I want to say when I was injured on duty. That's why I stopped being a chief of police. But I was hit by a truck that kept going, and a lady who I had arrested her brother 2 weeks prior for a sex crime saw me get injured, and she did a citizen's arrest on the truck that hit me. So if I wouldn't have showed, that's that paying it forward. If I wouldn't have showed her brother compassion, maybe the guy that hit me would have got away. I don't know.
Oh my God. Well, my goodness. You mentioned, Betty, you all right with me. I don't care what nobody say. How did your role in helping form you formed the first sexual assault response team?
In my department, yeah. I went and I had to go get the hospital. And what a sexual assault response team is when you have a sexual assault, you have to take them. They have them in St. Louis. They're very common, but out in the rural counties, they don't. And I'd seen the one in St. Louis. I was like, oh man, we really need this. And so what they do is they help you with, you have nurses that are dedicated to collecting your evidence and making sure it gets properly taken and stuff. Instead of making your victim stay in the hospital for hours waiting for someone as the other emergency room stuff is going through, you can give them some dignity and respect and let them get their especially a child or someone that's, everybody's been traumatized during a sexual assault. But and so I had to go get the hospital on board. I had to get the sheriff's department, the prosecutor's office, and all these other stakeholders involved to start the sexual assault response team, which is still going today.
How did that shape your career?
I saw the adversity that people really just seem like, oh gosh, this is just someone. I've worked with police officers that said they never worked with a real rape before, and I was like, oh, come on, are you serious? Because nobody really wants to think that. And I saw the adversity from these other stakeholders in the community when I was trying to form that. And I was like, I can't believe we still have this, because there's a lot of people that they think, oh, well, she's being loose or she's being wild and that, but that's not necessarily true. When no is no. We've gotten more advanced since that than my time, but it's still an ongoing battle for sexual assault victims.
Big time. My favorite show on TV is Law and Order SVU.
I was Olivia Benson before she was Olivia Benson.
Hey, listen, Liv, we're gonna solve this. Liv coming. Hey, Captain Benson ain't no joke. I just want everybody to know.
No.
Okay, SVU. If you listening, you better watch Law and Order SVU. It's the longest running show on NBC and on TV. Okay. Good. But let me go back to Betty. Oh, my bad. Liv ain't here. Mariska Hargitay is her name.
I love her.
So you worked with the community in St. Louis in North St. Louis with those youth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, so before I add the next question, I want you to tell me about what you did in North St. Louis, what you did when you moved here and worked with those kids.
Well, my former husband is from Jennings, that area, and so it was kind of like old home week, and I'd go up there because my mother and father-in-law still lived there. And so the kids, I was teaching them, I was their career technical educator. So I was teaching them law enforcement and criminology and policing if they stayed in it for 2 years. And that was right about the time, right before the Ferguson unrest.
Okay.
And so my kids were there. So, they saw both sides of it.
And when I spoke to you, you mentioned you were working at Lindenwood, and there was a point where the kids would graduate, but they wouldn't be able to get a job,
Right.
because they didn't know. Talk to me about that.
Well, the kids would be they would come through Lindenwood. I was a professor there, and they would not be able to get jobs, and they would be like, "Well, I don't understand. I've got this degree," but I said, "Okay, well, what happened? It's your criminal history." So about 17, which was the legal adult in Missouri, they would either if they caught a case, they would get bad legal advice, or they would take a felony, and they thought it would get off their record because they were off probation. But it didn't go away. They got bad legal advice. They listened to somebody. They gave them this wrong advice, or they just misinterpreted it. So here they were. They had this degree, and they were ready to go, but they couldn't because of bad legal advice, or because that they thought that it was gone. And that's just not how it happens. To be expunged, you have to go through the court process. So a lot of my kids weren't getting jobs. So I went and I said, get them in high school, and then they can understand their rights, or understand that this could lead to that if you really want this job. Like a lot of my kids would say, "Oh, I want to be an FBI agent." Okay, there's only 900 FBI agents hired every year. So you got to make yourself marketable, and going out and getting in trouble, they're going to do a background check on you all the way to kindergarten. So, and that's what they do. I think a lot of people don't understand the thorough backgrounds. They'll go back and talk to your kindergarten teacher. I mean, that's the way it is. Yep. And at the time too, St. Louis PD had on their hiring, is your stepfather or step-parents or anyone else ever been in trouble with the law? Well, you can't help who your mom got involved with or your dad got involved with if they got involved with someone who had a criminal history. But that was a way of keeping people from getting on police jobs, was looking at.
That is so true.
So if they would have looked at mine, there was no way in heck I would have gotten anywhere, because they would have seen my mother,
But and that's a good point that you said that, because they would have just bypassed you based on everything else. But yet, because you got your experience somewhere else, you were able to flourish, and you're still flourishing even as an investigator right now to this day. But that opportunity would have just been taken away from you, and I just hate that, because somebody, just because, again, you don't have to be a negative product of your circumstances.
But they're
I'm not
making
gonna
it
take
that
the
way.
opportunity from you because somebody before you was just this person and this person, and not give you the opportunity to shine. And it's just going to be an evolving cycle. You're just not going to let nobody, do what they can, reach their highest potential, basically. What do you see as one of the most, not the most important, what to you, what do you see as important steps for evolving police and community relationships?
Oh my gosh. Let me count the ways. Because first of all, you have to listen to the people. And I know they say that they're doing a lot of listening, but are they doing a lot of listening?
Woo!
Right.
You got to give the people what they want, Betty. Come on.
You got to listen, because, I was married to a Caucasian man from Jennings, and he knew if he had a person of color in the car, he was going to get pulled over. That's just a given. So he would leave for his little job at Barnes Hospital an hour early if he had a person of color in the car with him, because he knew they was going to get pulled over. And he'd get pulled over, and, the only difference would be that he would get handcuffed in the front and they'd get handcuffed in the back and going on the ground. You've got to listen to your people. Who's policing who? Because now you got citizens that have to police the police.
Come on, I bet you they don't know their Bill of Rights. Some of them don't know it.
None of them don't, and that's what I went and got the your rights, and I gave them to all my kids, and I said, take them home with you, give them to your parents, let them know, read it to them if they don't know, read it to grandma, let you know what your rights are, because that's what was going on. My sister was going through this murder trial. Her rights were getting trampled on by this rural county, and I was dealing with my kids right outside of Ferguson in North St. Louis, and their rights were getting trampled on. Everybody, it was like, people love when you're not educated.
Woo, come on.
That is so true.
Somebody got to talk
That is
to
so
him.
true.
Woo, good people. I don't know what. You know what? Wait a minute. Hold on, Betty. Hold on, Betty. I got to do something, Betty. Woo! Come on. It don't matter what field you in. They love when you ignorant.
That's right. It doesn't matter. People love when you're not educated. My mom told me one thing. She said, you know what? They can't repossess education. You can have your car repossessed. You can have your furniture repossessed. They can't repossess your education, and they can't uneducate you. You're the one that can uneducate yourself. So that was one reason why I was always reading a book. I always had a book in my hand somewhere. Everywhere I went, it was like a security blanket, because I wanted to know as much as I could, because this whole world is not set up for people like me. It ain't set. I was born with 2 strikes against me: an alcoholic mother and a nowhere father. But I made my own rules. And I think that's one thing that my sister bought into, was that she stayed in that problem. That's why she ended up in prison.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Betty, you didn't allow your demons to control you. And you said a good thing. You said you read a lot. And I think it's very important that we should encourage our youth to read.
Mm-hmm.
To read.
Yes.
Is very important, so that they can educate themselves.
If you don't want to take a book with you, get on your phone, just start reading, just start looking at stuff, and then validating those sources. Find out where your sources are really coming from, because that was one thing. I don't like listening to just one thing. I want to hear all of it. I want to hear the back, forward, and the sides. I'm doing it all. So, and that's what happened, and seeing how my sister, she wasn't given a voice, and that's why I wrote this book, was because the criminal justice system took my sister's voice away. And, they tried to arrest me. The prosecutor actually came after me for just saying to him, hey, we're going to appeal my sister's case. And he said, oh, you're going to jail. And I said, what for? And he said, you talk to me. You can't talk to me. And I was like, you're an elected prosecutor. I can talk to you all I want. And I said, hey, I'm not my sister. I got A, B, C, D, E, F, and almost G behind my name of degrees.
Come on,
so
you know what to say.
We can talk.
Right.
Huh. Who he thought he was talking to? He didn't know he was Betty Jane Frizzle. Okay. Woo! Tell you what. Betty. Man, hey, what was the most proud moment of your career? Tell me that.
I think the most proud moment of my career was that I had finally got a dad who and he was a grandfather at that time. He had molested the daughter and all the cousins and everything, and then he started in on the daughter's kids, because and people don't realize that you're so conditioned mentally that you don't understand what right sexual boundaries are, and. But the kid was like, hey, I'm going to tell, because I was taught this, and that came from the school, and I was taught, and then finally shutting him down. And my victims were in the double digits by the time we got done. We couldn't convict him on all of them, but we did get him, and he's in life in DOC, so he's not hurting anybody else. He's good. So, but I think that's it. Yeah. And, my mother was very abusive to my sister, and then the school was very abusive, and I didn't get to save my sister from the criminal justice system. And that really affected me mentally, because, I'm a protector. That's my DNA, is I protect people, because I stand up for people who ain't got a voice. And, I think that's what, I kind of find that God put me on earth for that, but I couldn't protect my sister, and I felt like a failure. But I did the best I could, because, sometimes Goliath thinks he can win, but he didn't beat us. Me and my sister are both flourishing. That's one thing.
Good. Awesome.
And she's not out getting victimized. I mean, the prison is not where I'd like her to be. I'd like her to be in a mental institution, but at least she's not being. She has had her nose broke by so many men that her nose is crooked. I was just seeing her in Chillicothe not too long ago, and she's had her ribs broken. She's, and these guards are not the greatest to her either, but I at least know she's safe, and that she's at least got a roof over her head, and she's, it's not ideal. And I'm going to fight to the last breath I got to get my sister out. That's what I all of her appeals are gone, all that, but I still will not quit talking about her case.
Good.
And we're going to keep going. And a lot of people say, well, you're supposed to be a cop. They do the crime, let them do the time. There's mitigating circumstances in every case. It's not, you can't blanket that.
Yep.
We learned that with the 3 strikes and you're out rule. You can't blanket criminal justice. It should be a case by case basis. And in her case, it was just they didn't listen at all.
Small town, no money.
No, yeah, no money. If she was a millionaire, or if she was in my state that I'm in now, she probably would have got a few years in mental therapy. But they don't have that down there. They only got 5 mental health courts in the state of Missouri, and they're not down in the South where they need to be, where most people are living off of disability due to mental health conditions.
So, what else do you wish to accomplish?
I want to help other people with that. I'd like to walk the state of Missouri as one of my big goals that I want to do, and just go to the rural prisons and hand out literature about mental health conditions and how to, when these people do end up in their care, how to take care of them, because they had no idea what they were dealing with my sister. And so since she's been in prison, in the rural county, not in prison, but in rural county, she's gotten her ribs broken. She had her nose broke again by a guard because they don't know how to deal with her.
Oh, my gosh.
Because in the state of Missouri, you don't even have to have a police officer certification to be a corrections officer in those small little counties.
And, hey, you can be 18 now, I think,
Yes, it's 18. Officer. It is 18. I ain't having no 18-year-old tell me what to do. I'm sorry.
Let me tell you, I was handcuffing 18-year-olds, okay?
Right.
Here and in the state of Texas, putting boys on their backs. And you telling me you about to handcuff these grown? Nah. You
can tell me when I can eat, go to the bathroom, take a shower. You gonna watch me when I'm taking a shower? Nope.
18, man. You can't even go give me a cocktail, man.
You're lying.
Get this little boy away from me.
This U.S. Supreme Court has said that offenders who have offended before 25, their brains aren't developed. 18, you ain't developed. I'm sorry.
Man.
You're not grown.
And Texas keeps their kids until the day before their 19th birthday. That's what tells you they trying to hold out on these juveniles. And you telling me you could be a correctional officer? Okay.
Yeah.
But
and they don't make any money either. They put these prisons out in these rural areas, and then what are they going to get to work there? How are they going to get good qualified? They're not going to get somebody with a college degree to work for $38,000 a year. I'm sorry. Because they just got a raise.
I don't think they make that much to start.
They just got. I just talked to the corrections officers when I was in the jail, and they just got a raise. That was a raise. They were making $31,000. I'm not putting my shoes on for that.
I'm not even putting my shoes on. Man, I ain't putting my Nike slides on, okay? Look, okay.
Nope.
So what's the best piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Just go to college sooner. I should have went to college sooner. Mm-hmm. And devour more books. Just learn as much as you can. And get out of that small town as soon as you could have. And I did, man. When I got my graduation papers, I was gone. I was gone to Seattle. And because my sister was married to a man that worked for McDonnell Douglas. And they got bought out by Boeing. And then we went out to Seattle. And it was the best thing I ever could have done.
Awesome. So with the Angels Online, I like to do a do you question. The do you question is for anybody that's listening to the Angels Online. It's a question for you to ask the people that can allow them to engage in conversation amongst one another. Mm-hmm. So it could be whatever do you I know, what one of the do yous a couple weeks ago was, do you accept yourself when you look in the mirror? So what's your do you? If you could think of any do you, what's the do you that you would like to give the people to actually think about?
Do you really think that this is the life you should be living? Do you think you're getting the most out of the life that you were given?
Oh, come on. Do you think you are living the most out of the, say that again. Do you think that you are living the most out of the life? I want to make sure, I don't want to mess up. Say it again, Betty, for them. Get the people what they want.
Do you think that you are living the best life that you were given? Is this how you really want to live your life?
Boom. Boom. Come on. So, Betty, I got a question. Can you please tell the people what you just got done doing and the things that you have coming up? Please.
Yeah, I just got done filming an episode of I'm a Murderer with Netflix about my sister's case and my theories about what really went on in her case, because I don't think my sister committed this crime. I think her son did, and I think that he wasn't looked into strong enough because he ran off to Germany after this happened. And it should be on in August. So it'd be me and my sister talking about her case. And I'm very proud of her because for the first time in her 54 years of life, well, she's 50, she's going to be 55, she admitted that she was an abuse victim by my mom. And she has defended my mom tooth and nail. And I think it was just me telling her, saying, it's okay. You can talk about the abuse. Mom's not here. I'm still scared of my mom, and she's been gone since 2001.
Ooh.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, I would rather have been in a gunfight in a bad neighborhood than deal with my mom. No way. I am not doing that. And you don't talk about the mom. That was the way we were raised. Mom has a certain level, and you ain't on that level. You're not ever going to be on that level. And I'm still scared of my mom to this day. She's been gone so long now.
And your Netflix, that episode should come out in August?
Yes. It'll be on the new season of I Am a Murderer.
The new season of I Am a Murderer, ladies and gentlemen. Betty Jane. Talking to us out of Seattle, Washington right now, where they got nice weather and they only get 2 seasons. And they hope to get sun, for goodness sake.
You need to come out here and eat some seafood. I miss my catfish, but the seafood out here is pretty good.
I got to make some shake. I got to get to you. Hey, Tell us the name of your book as well, Betty. Tell us the name of your book.
It is If You Can't Quit Crying, You Can't Come Here No More by Betty Frizzell. It's in Farrell House Publishing. And that was the first line my sister said to me when I seen her in prison. Because we're big Missouri, we're tough Missouri country girls. We don't cry. I couldn't stop crying. And I think she's maybe saw me cry twice. And that was like the birth of my son and when my grandma passed. And I couldn't quit crying when I saw her in that jumpsuit in jail. She told me, if you can't stop that crying, you can't come see me because I can't take it.
Is there what's your website? Can you give us your website if people want to find you?
It's BettyJaneFrizzell.com. And then I have Facebook as Betty Jane Frizzell author.
Good people. Hey, Betty, I have people tell me, I have to tell the people, you got to give me a good people, Betty. I need you to say good people, Betty. Come on.
Good people.
Good people, ladies and gentlemen. That's this episode of The Angels Online. Voice of the unheard. Betty got a voice. Betty got a platform over here on The Angels Online. You got to get up people what they want. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to The Angels Online, Voice of the Unheard. Please stay tuned for the next episode next Wednesday, each and every Wednesday, and hopefully we motivate, influence, and inspire you. You are someone's angel. Remember, all voices matter. Peace and love from The Angels Online, Voice of the Unheard.